The most common accident involving scaffolds is a fall to a lower level. That's quite obvious since the purpose of erecting scaffolds is to provide a safe place to work when you must work at a height above ground level. This short training program is designed to review some of the basics of scaffolds and how to properly use this equipment. Keep in mind that each state has different rules, regulations, and standards, and it's up to you to determine the exact scaffold requirements in the state where you're located and working. This short program does not list all hazards or safety measures of scaffolds. It's simply an overview of some basics to help make you more aware of safety around scaffolds. Always follow your company rules and regulations when working with or using scaffolds. Any scaffold must be constructed to safely support a weight 4 times the maximum intended load. For example, a scaffold normally expected to hold a 200-pound man and his 20 pounds of material should be designed to support 880 pounds without breaking. To be on the safe side, you should never load a scaffold beyond the maximum intended weight.
Falls from scaffolds are the second most common cause of disabling and fatal fall injuries involving construction workers. According to information published by OSHA in 1996, about 72% of the workers injured in scaffold accidents said the accident was due to one of the following causes. 1. The planking or support slipped or gave way. Or 2. The employee slipped or fell when he was struck by a falling object. And or 3. There was no guardrail. OSHA requires the scaffold erector to have one or more trained and qualified persons on site who personally supervise the erection, use, and disassembly of scaffolds. The competent person is responsible for determining the means of ensuring the integrity of the scaffold and the proper fall protection. He or she must make sure that the work crew maintains and uses the scaffold in a safe manner. It is the competent person's job to be sure that supported scaffolds are properly braced, guyed, and tied into the structure, and that there are level, sound, and rigid footings that will not settle or move. It is the responsibility of every worker to look over the scaffold before you use it to make sure you're not getting onto something that is unsafe. There must also be a safe means of access to scaffold platforms. The ladder may be built into the scaffold, or a properly secured portable ladder may be used. No one is allowed to climb the cross braces. When the platform is more than 2 feet above or below a point of access, there must be a ramp or walkway or direct access from another scaffold, structure, personnel hoist, or similar surface. On suspension scaffolds, the competent person must check the scaffold support devices, tiebacks, hoisting equipment, and connections for proper strength and to prevent swaying. As we mentioned, fatal injuries from scaffolds were most often due to planking that slipped or gave way. There are several ways of preventing this. First of all, only scaffold-grade planking may be used. Check all new planking and do not use any that have natural wood defects. Check all used planking and do not use any that have in-service wood defects. The second way to prevent planks from slipping or giving way is to make sure that each platform on all working levels is fully planked or decked between the front uprights and guardrail supports. The space between adjacent planks and between the platform and the upright should be less than 1 inch. If a wider space is needed, for example to fit around uprights when side brackets are used to extend the platform's width, the opening shall never exceed 9 1/2 inches. The third way to make sure that planks will not slip is to overlap the decking a minimum of 12 inches, or to secure it from movement, and to extend the planks past the end supports by no less than 6 inches and no more than 12 inches. To prevent a worker from slipping and falling, there must be guardrails and or a personal fall arrest system. The gap between the scaffold and the building or work must be minimized, and there must be overhead protection if objects could fall from above. OSHA's general rule is that each employee on a scaffold that is 10 feet or more above a lower level must be protected by guardrails or a personal fall arrest system. On Beck jobs, fall protection is required at a height of 6 feet or more, including scaffolding. There are no exceptions. Both guardrails and the personal fall arrest system are required on self-contained adjustable suspension scaffolds. When a fall arrest system is used on a scaffold, it must be properly secured to an anchorage that is independent of the scaffold, so that the worker will be protected if the scaffold falls. The gap from the front edge of a platform to the building or face of the work must be less than or equal to 14 inches for most scaffolds, and less than or equal to 3 inches for outrigger scaffolds. Up to 18 inches is allowed for plastering and lathing. Whenever the hazard of falling objects exists, guardrails shall have openings that are small enough to prevent the passage of objects to lower levels. Install a solid panel or screening barrier in the guardrail system. When tools, equipment, or materials are piled higher than the top edge of the toe board, paneling or screening shall be used from the walking or working surface up to the mid-rail or top rail as appropriate. Materials shall not be stored within 6 feet of a roof edge or open side unless a guardrail system has been erected at the edge. If guardrails do not provide adequate protection from falling objects, then a canopy should be installed over walkways or work areas. The canopy must be strong enough to prevent falling objects from penetrating it and to prevent its collapse. Of the construction fatalities due to electric shock, 95% were due to contact with live parts. About 2/3 of the fatalities involved contact with overhead power lines. Just over half of the electric contacts involved construction equipment, cranes, backhoes, trucks, drill rigs, and aerial lifts. Inform the local electric utility of work near overhead power lines 48 hours in advance if possible, so that arrangements can be made to de-energize, relocate, or insulate the lines if necessary, and to ensure that they lock out the automatic reclosure system of protective relays for the duration of the work. It is never safe to try to rescue a victim of a high-voltage electric contact. You'll be electrocuted too. The best thing you can do is call 911. The emergency services dispatcher can contact the utility so they can immediately de-energize the line. Many other fatal electric shocks on job sites were due to contacting energized conductors while holding metal pipe, rebar, metal paint rollers, and other conductive tools. About 5% of fatal electric shocks on construction sites were due to ungrounded tools. Strict adherence to the Assured Equipment Grounding Conductor program required by OSHA and 100% use of ground fault circuit interrupters on electrical extension cords can totally eliminate this type of accident. Falls from ladders are the 3rd most common cause of falls that result in disabling or fatal injuries. Most of the falls in this category occur at heights above 10 feet. Inspect each ladder before you use it. The ladder must be taken out of service if it has cracks, dents, or bends, broken rungs, or defective steps. Check the design strength of the ladder to be sure it will hold the amount of weight you'll be putting on it. To avoid having a straight ladder slip out from underneath you or from falling backwards, position the ladder so that the base of the ladder is at the most stable angle for climbing. The distance from the base to the wall should be about 1/4 the working length of the ladder. If you're using a ladder to gain access to an elevated area such as a roof or platform, check to be sure that the top of the ladder extends at least 3 feet above the roof or platform. If it does not, go get a longer ladder. Block the base of the ladder if the ladder does not have safety feet or if the surface is very smooth and the base could slip. Someone should hold the ladder at its base while a worker is climbing up or down an unsecured ladder. Face the ladder and do not carry anything in your hands while climbing. Only one person at a time is allowed on this type of ladder. Straight ladders should be tied to a good anchorage point at the top of the ladder whenever possible. When additional tools or materials are needed, they must be sent up on a rope or in a bucket. The person on the ladder could fall off trying to catch something thrown to him, especially if he has been trained to instinctively reach out to make a catch. Electric tools may not be raised or lowered by their cords, since this may damage the tool and the defect may not be discovered until a painful shock occurs. Keep your weight between the center rails of the ladder. If you need to reach outside the rails, move the ladder. If you can't move the ladder, you will need to hook up a personal fall arrest system to a secure anchor point. Improper setup or improper use of the self-supporting ladder are most commonly associated with injuries. It is each employee's responsibility to thoroughly inspect the self-supporting ladder prior to use.